it. Hey, 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 hey. Let's go.
Perfectly sweet.
Yeah. You shit, girl.
I'm sitting here.
Bruno, you know.
My bad. I'm vibing real quick.
Yeah. Girl, you know that you
I'm
the
sitting
shit.
here.
'Cause this is the remix. Baby, Bruno on the track.
uh,
So just back at me, baby.
I'm sitting here sipping on some chai tea, right? And that's better. Sitting here sipping on some chai tea, and I'm going through some previous episodes, right? And I came across. You remember the time where we talked about R. Kelly and that whole situation? And I wouldn't say the guest got into it, but there was some misunderstandings that I felt was like a really there were some laughable moments there. You know what I mean? So like I was sitting here giggling to myself. I said, let me just share this with y'all. And I'm gonna tag y'all in this, the guests. So y'all can like y'all remember this? You know what I mean? Cause I just like yeah. I don't know. It was a dope ass moment. I can't wait to have these guests on again. Honestly,
Matter of fact, like I think the latest one was as of June 2021 when he was accused again because apparently he had an argument and he's accused of hitting this woman again. Different woman, but yeah.
Different women doesn't change my idea that they're dancing. If I mean everybody saw the pictures of Rihanna, it's kind of like R. Kelly. It's like everybody knew that R. Kelly was like sleeping with little girls, but yet dads were taking their daughters to the concert and handing them over to R. Kelly. It's like, yeah, they're
yep,
different, but they're still being involved.
yep,
And I'm not saying that they're not being hurt or anything like that because as I was in a shelter, but it stopped when I was ready to stop.
right,
It didn't stop until then. I left, I went in the shelter, I did this, I did that, but I always went back.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't just him. I always did things. It's more than just, you know, and I'm not saying it doesn't get violent, it's not hurt. Yeah, but it's a dance I could have picked up and left. And you can say, well, you didn't know and this and that. Of course I knew I could leave.
So you think that part of being beaten is partially your fault?
That's not what I said.
well, hold on. Let me cut you off there because we're talking about Rihanna and Chris Brown for context. There's in looking at the universe and the way that I see things, what you allow is your fault. It's in your path and it's in your destiny. You're bound to learn
The
it.
problem with that is kind of like the word luxury that she had a problem with. Fault. What do you mean by fault? It's what you're involved in. Like,
Speak that shit, sis.
I try to stay away from these victim terms and these terms of like, oh, this
Right.
happened to me. It's what you're involved in. That's why I
Right.
brought up, I said these other women, they knew who Chris Brown was. They know Chris Brown beats women. Obviously, that's what you're saying, that he beats women. So they knew that. And they chose to get involved with Chris Brown. Why? Because they didn't care.
Mm-hmm.
And then they get beat, and it's like, it's not a fault. It's what they're involved with. It's
Right.
what they're what they're doing. It's a
Right.
dance they're involved in. This is what I'm saying. Like, I really think you're having a hard time understanding my language, and I don't know how to help you because I feel like
Cringe moment.
you're not hearing what I'm saying from my heart. You're hearing these words that you don't really know what the hell I'm saying.
Ooh.
And so I'm not saying fault because I don't feel like it's fault.
She said, "What the hell
I
I'm
feel
saying?"
like we get what we're into.
Yeah.
The universe
So-
continues to give me the cycle of what I want to be involved in. And
Right.
sometimes that's
Until you break
sadness,
like
and sometimes that's depression, and sometimes that's pain because I'm involved in that. And once
sometimes
I
it's
make it,
fame.
when I make that decision to step outside of that, I do something different, and the universe gives me something different.
Yes.
To give me what that is that I'm
Yes.
trying to be involved with. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Can you help me, Chantal?
And so clearly, Chris, and for what I'm seeing here, no, Mary. So what? There's
She had
a lot of
directly
things are
messaged me.
divine destiny, whether we know it or not. There's a purpose for everything. um, and that's the way that I see the universe. There's a purpose for everything. It doesn't mean that what you go through is okay or it's right or it's good, but good or bad, everything is an experience. And with Chris Brown specifically, he clearly is not, there's lessons being thrown at him, and he's not taking those lessons. So he's still repeating his history until history is going to show him that he can free himself from those chains if he chooses to. So at this point, the things that he's going through, in my eyes, is that he's at now just as at fault because he's allowing those things to happen to him.
Yeah, he's involved too. Absolutely. He's partying.
Oh yeah, and just the same with girls that but it's see with that it's a little deeper because it has to do with the trauma and ties that can make or break you as a person. We all deal with our trauma in multiple different ways. Everybody deals with their trauma in multiple different ways. And whether you have trauma, everyone actually has trauma in their childhood. And it manifests in a number of different ways, and it makes us who we are.
Yes.
Whether it's bad or good, and that's how you perceive it, but it still makes you the person that you are. And for example, you, Mary, as a person, you escaped a lot of that trauma and overcame it. And every day, all of us still deal with different demons and work through them on a daily basis. We're still waking up and breathing and fighting the things that we experienced as far as trauma in our past lives or in our childhood. That's the way that I specifically see the universe. Nick, is that kind of similar?
It's what you're involved in, yeah. And it's like, so this question that Mary's asking about the children, I feel like these are like deeper questions because then you get into why the children came and why we're here and what, like.
Well, we were going to get into spirituality and how it connects.
Like I have all this childhood trauma, and years ago I didn't understand why I had that trauma, but today I look at it and I'm like, well, I had that trauma because it's making me the person I am today to be able to help people in the way that I'm able to help people. And if I didn't have these experiences, I wouldn't be able to do that. But God knew that there was a bigger picture than I understood. But then that starts getting involved in like what I believe about who we are and why we're here and like all that kind of stuff. But, and it's so complex. It's all so complex. These aren't like just easy answers. Like, like.
I agree.
It's just not easy stuff to talk about. Like, especially when there's like a language barrier.
Right. I was gonna say depends on the environment.
And that's what I feel like we're dealing with is a language barrier because I talk in this way, and and it's difficult and it's different, and I think in this way, and it's difficult to translate because you guys, I'm listening to you and I'm like, yeah, they're saying stuff like good and bad, and I don't really think experiences are good or bad. I think they just are. And it's like, right. It's like stuff like that. It's like, am I a good or bad person? I'm just a person. Like, I don't feel like anybody's good or bad. Like, the truth is, all we are manifestations of the universe doing every single thing possible in every single way.
Talk about
all at the same time. Like, that's really what's going on here. So everything that's happening is necessary. Right. And it's like, who's good and bad in that? And something like that. There's no good and bad. It just is.
Right.
And so it's like, it's hard to sit and talk about like those kinds of concepts because to me, it's like, it's all unfolding and happening exactly as it should.
Agreed.
I don't think any of these people are bad. I don't think any of them are bad. I don't think Chris Brown is bad. I don't think R. Kelly is bad. I don't think Michael Jackson is bad.
No, Mary, Are you familiar with like yin and yang and like duality?
The balance.
Ooh,
Right. That's
she
very
was
much
hot.
how I see things. Um, in the sense of good and bad, but you can't have one without the other, and altogether it makes up an experience, it makes up life. You can't have one without the other. So whether someone wants to acknowledge it or not, there's bad that happens in their life, but it's still an experience that makes them who they are. Without it, they're not living, they're not a being. You know what I mean? Does one experience things in their childhood that are not savory? Yes, and it's not necessarily great, but it still is a piece of who they are. It's a facet. It's an experience that makes them who they are. Without it, you can't be who you are. Without that the experience that you had, the experiences that you have had as a person, Mary.
We talked for like
Happen
two
quite
fucking
frequently where,
hours.
there can be a lack of appropriate investigation,
We covered a number of
and
stuff.
where they may also not even just not like do anything legally. They may place it in the hands of the Amish church, which is not equipped. These people have an 8th grade education. They don't learn anything about science, you know, any healthcare, etc., no psychology. And so they're here and they're supposed to be rehabilitating convicted sex offenders, pedophiles.
What?
And it shows, because that doesn't just happen inside of Amish communities, it also happens outside of there. It's like the state of Hollywood. Like, these people in positions of power inside of our cultures are literally being given leeway to do whatever it is that they do, rather than being held accountable to the law.
They're above the law. Not that the law is any better.
Yeah.
Sounds like anywhere else, right?
Physical affection and just not really being valued and getting my cup filled. I realized that like I had to do a lot of soul searching and changing and valuing myself and stuff. But a lot of people don't understand that and they succumb to a lot of the evils of American society. And I'm not saying it's sad, but it's what I acknowledge. It's what I acknowledge of American society. And it's one of the things that I really am trying hard to change, just by being my authentic self, and doing my best to not feel restrained in this society, which sometimes means like being ridiculed or being talked shit on just because. Yeah, so Lil Nas X is 100% caught up in it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so people still have that, like I watched the Obama deception, and that's what let me know that Obama was part of it. But he meant what he said at first, because if he didn't, he wouldn't have been able to convince so many people. You know what I'm saying?
Agreed. Yep.
He convinced us because he believed in it and he had us on his side. So once we're on his side, it's harder for us to leave him, or to, we're going to make excuses for him and stuff like that. Because that's how the Black community is. We always.
Great point she's bringing up, because what happened, the Black people transferred and now they voted for Biden, same difference. They dig in Biden. They really don't like Biden. They didn't want to vote for him, but they voted for him anyway. Now these motherfuckers think they stuck with his ass. They really don't want to support him. They really don't like his ass, but he told us that we have to like him. I don't like his ass and I won't, and I'm very outspoken about it. I'm just saying, like, come on, when are we going to appoint and have our own leaders? And they don't have to be presidents. Because, what's a president really doing? What's a president really going to do?
Want to stand by each other.
And and R. Kelly is a microcosm of what you're explaining right now.
Yes, of course. And of course, we don't want it like O.J. Simpson. Go back to O.J. Simpson.
Yes.
Talk about it. Yes.
Black people tell you that O.J. didn't do that. O.J. didn't get convicted. That's what we celebrated.
Right.
Because it's really there for us. We've been convicted and damaged so much that we don't care if you did it. If you get off, we're going to celebrate that because you beat this system
That's
that
right.
beats us every
Yes,
single day.
that's what we're celebrating. Yes.
So it doesn't matter. It's like, okay, you guys say R. Kelly did it. So what? I'm going out and buy R. Kelly CD.
That was like Sha'Carri Richardson, the track star.
Yeah.
People started writing her up because of the homophobic stuff she said, but I understand the context behind why she said it. And you know what? The fact that she still achieved like what she achieved, then I like. It's not that I don't understand. I support her because of what she accomplished as a person. Do you know what I mean? And I support her because of that. I don't condone the stuff she said, but I also understand when and how it was said. You know what I mean? So like the same thing.
Yeah. So for me, it's like I get it. I understand. Like I get it. You want the underdog to win sometimes. Like
Right.
it just doesn't matter. And I think that's really what it comes down to when you're talking about cheering for these people. It's really like, I'm going to stand behind them because they're Black. That no other reason.
Right.
Because the shit you guys do to us, you don't do it for any other reason than that we're Black.
Talk about it.
And so that's what I really think this stuff, boils down to. And as long as they keep us docile and twerking and, doing all that shit, talking about
like shit because of the food.
and Power Book 3 and, Canaan and all that shit. As long as we're doing that, we're not unifying and bucking up against the bullshit that's going on.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? We're preoccupied, and more bullshit can go on. We've been under attack since the white man came to this country.
Speak that
That's
truth.
right.
We were under attack before he came, but here in this country, ever since he landed, he's been trying to kill anything that doesn't look like him.
Yep.
Down the whole planet is.
And please, again, people that are listening, I'm not racist. That's not what I'm talking about.
Right.
I'm talking about this European-centric
Colonizers. That's what I call them.
That's right.
Well, we live in a European-centric culture.
Yep.
Period. It's just the truth of it. There's no room for anything outside of the European way.
Right.
Period. That's why
We did talk about
I'd
R.
much
Kelly.
rather get my news from what I experience in the world and what I need to be involved in, as opposed to what they're using to scare me or to make me believe a certain thing. Everything on television is to manipulate us.
That's right.
And to make us think in certain ways. Everything.
Yep.
It's programming us. What it's called program.
For real.
I don't watch most television.
What about you, Mary?
I don't actually watch the news because to me the news is just not my cup of tea. It's very depressing. It's very overwhelming to continually see all these stories of like making people feel like they're bad human beings, when in fact there's so much good that happens in the world on a daily basis that we
talk about it, Mary,
miss it by being so focused on what's happening in the news.
Yes.
For real. Oh my God, that was well put. I watch the news to monitor what they're saying and how they're saying it. And to compare what is actually going on in the world and how they like to portray things. Now, one source that I do really respect and revere and find very credible is Democracy Now!, simply because they don't sugarcoat anything. How long they will last.
Rehabilitating convicted sex offenders, pedophiles.
What?
And it shows, because that doesn't just happen inside of Amish communities, it also happens outside of there. It's like the state of Hollywood, like these people in the... Excuse
Mary,
me, may I speak?
Yeah, go ahead.
I hear you saying it's separate. I also hear you saying some very inaccurate statements about Amish folks, which is absolutely a romanticized view. That
What did I say
Well,
about
listen,
Amish
hold on,
folks
listen.
besides it's
Let me say
separate?
this. Let me say this. If you feel that way, and I will say something else too, but if you feel that way, then it's not your part to educate us, but enlighten us if you would like to. And then I'll also say what I think was the real triggering word from my perspective for you, Mary, was the word luxury, because it completely changed a lot of things. And I get where you're coming from, Mary. Then I also get where Nick is coming from as well. Because of a lot of the things that we as Black folk have to go through, we do not have the luxury of being able to pay attention or understand other cultures as much as other cultures just dig into ours. We're dug apart, dissected, moved about however we wish. But then when it comes to uh us being able to talk about we're not able to.
Mhm.
And so I feel like it's the same thing when it comes to y'all. Like, it's just from a different experience and different perspective, but it's still a mental oppression. Just to
Yeah. Tune in to that episode back on October 3rd of last year. You can catch it on the Leon Block channel on YouTube. Shit is crazy. It's 2.5 hours worth of juiciness is the best way that I could describe it. But go ahead and check out our YouTube channel and subscribe. We'll talk to y'all tomorrow. Be good.